Hello, I'm Nina Kelly from Safe New Futures, and welcome back again to the series of podcasts about modern day issues we love to ignore and how much do we really care. So today we're going to be talking about countering loneliness in the workplace, and I'm joined by Peter Taylor, President of the Hampshire Chamber of Commerce and Senior Partner at Paris Smith, and also by Michael Holbrow, Managing Director at Inspired Leadership Solutions. Now, Safe New Futures, as a charity, we run programs and we run peer-led courses in promoting well-being. And the reason I say this is because people will come in saying that they think they are the only ones experiencing these negative thoughts, and they makes them feel very, very alone in those feelings. So we attempt to normalize these feelings by showing that anxiety and other mental health issues are just actually part of the body's normal response to survival and to coping, and not necessarily a problem health issue that actually needs treating or medicating. And then secondly, as course participants see other people in the same boat, they feel less strange or weird about themselves, they feel less isolated, and then they're more able to socialize and to develop mutually supportive relationships. And then following on from that, the group dynamic, the peer group becomes so powerful. And these connections are very validating, especially for the young people on our courses who feel a need to be heard, and it enables them to build trust and confidence in themselves and others. Personally, for me, I found peer-to-peer boards when I was looking for peer support, and at our monthly meeting we hear how others going through similar dilemmas to us are working things through. And this group allows me time to breathe, to find a fresh perspective, and to feel supported through sharing common experiences. Now, Michael, I know you work from home a lot. What do you do to ensure that you have peer group support in your work?
It's so important, as you've pointed out already in what you've said, the importance of having that peer group relationship. Probably one of my main foundational peer groups is 3 guys, myself and 2 others, that worked together for about 10 years in the same business. They've both retired, I continued working, and we meet up once a month for 2 to 2.5 hours, and we have a great agenda of just supporting each other. Whatever's going on in our lives, we're really open. They are really helpful for me in terms of business checks and balances of what I'm doing, if I've got ideas. But we also then have that as a WhatsApp group during the in between, so it's not just waiting for those 2 moments, those monthly moments. In addition to that, I also have, and I thought about that this morning when I was had a piece of content I wanted to try out with somebody. I looked at my peer group list, and I've got 5 or 6 really good people who, when I send them content, or if I was to pick the phone up to them, I know they would respond, and they do actively put and give me some time in terms of critiquing something, or I also know that if that was around sharing some life experience or something I'm stuck with, I know they would give me that feedback. And that's invaluable, knowing they're there.
Yes.
And that's really helped me establish a lack of being, that not feeling alone.
Yes.
There's always somebody there if I need to. And often I do have people reaching out to me saying, you've been quiet, what's going on, please share. So that's a wonderful feeling as well. And then the golf colleagues that I go out, ex-colleagues that we go and play golf, they always drag me out. I wouldn't go and play golf unless they actually make it happen, and they make it happen on a regular basis. Gets me out, gets me into a different environment, and that's just been great for my general mental health, and certainly removes that feeling of I'm running this business all alone.
That's very helpful. Thank you for sharing that. Now, Peter, what do you do in your experience, and which peer groups do you find of greatest support, and also what are the values that these peer groups share that resonate with your values?
I concur a lot with what Michael has just explained in terms of having a group of people with whom you can be fully authentic, with whom you can show immense vulnerability, and with whom you know that no judgments are going to be made, and actually they will help you to work through problems, whether they be business related or whether they be personally related, but in that safe space where everything is kept very much confidential. And that may be a group of colleagues at work, or it may be a group of colleagues and friends outside the working environment. It's whatever works for you, but having that shared support network that is that safe space, and as you touched upon, having similar values, similar level of respect is absolutely key. And for me, it won't come as a surprise that the values that are at the core of Paris Smith are very much the same values that drive me, in terms of service for others, professionalism, integrity, always doing the right thing when nobody else is looking, respect in relationships, thinking slightly differently, thinking innovatively, but underpinning all your relationships with trust. Trust is something that is hugely valuable, shouldn't be taken for granted. Takes time to build trust, but it can be lost very, very quickly. And I treasure those, and I don't take them for granted at all.
Yes, and I might say you've been on our advisory board in the past for our subsidiary training company, Choices Training and Development, and I can say that you've exhibited all those qualities in that setting, and you've created a space where we were able to talk really openly about really difficult issues, because there was that mutual trust, and we knew that it was confidential as well, and nothing was going to go beyond that. And it's so important for us to be honest, firstly with ourselves, and actually admit to ourselves that things are difficult. And I think accountability in those peer groups is perhaps very important. I'm only saying that because that's what you modelled to us, and you were sometimes very challenging about, what is going wrong, what are you finding difficult, and you wouldn't let me off the hook. I remember it distinctly. I would try and wriggle and squirm, and I had to admit when things were difficult and why they were difficult, and then not only that, you made me do something about it. So yes, we've talked a lot about authenticity and being vulnerable and being open and being honest, but there is a whole element of actually being accountable to those peers as well that's equally important.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you in the past for all you've done. And yeah, sometimes work can be serious, it can feel serious. Personally, I've always been a bit of a fan of creating a bit of lightness and fun in the workplace, as well as providing that safe place for people to come to work as their authentic selves. We also do wellness action plans, and well-being days and weekly team meetings to help to dispel loneliness at work. And I'm sure that you do similar things and other solutions as well, Peter, in your line of work. What sort of solutions have you put into practice in the past to dispel loneliness?
So it's creating that environment in which everybody feels they can have a voice and be authentic. That is crucially important. And as I touched in a previous podcast, the role of leadership, I think, in any organisation is seeking to get the best out of your people, ensuring that they feel fulfilled, feel rewarded, and supporting them on their career path and their career journey, and doing that in a consistent and a supportive manner. In terms of creating that environment in which people can flourish and thrive, yes, one has the physical environment, but also one needs to have the emotional and social environment, and that's where well-being comes into play. So we focus on not only mental resilience and mental health, but on financial well-being, environmental well-being, emotional well-being, social well-being, physical well-being, and ensuring that we are supporting everybody throughout the organisation with these opportunities. Because if you create that environment in which people feel at ease and really want to flourish for themselves, you're going to get the best out of them. They're going to feel really engaged, feel open. And making sure that they have that opportunity to contribute to the direction of the business. So I think focus groups, open communication channels is hugely important. And letting them feel, as I said before, letting them feel that they've got a voice and are valued. No one person has got all the answers, but collectively there is every chance that you will have a vast majority of all the answers.
Yeah, thank you for that. And of course it's easier for some people to use their voice than others. Sometimes going right back to childhood where they were allowed to use their voice back then. So I'm kind of, presuming you're having to use all sorts of different techniques to ensure that people do feel able to use their voice, even the ones that don't want to.
Yeah, and sometimes now one uses technology to help people feel that they can express their view, as others might have done vocally. For some, using technology is the way in which they prefer to communicate.
Yeah.
So recognising that.
Yeah, excellent. So Michael, how have you helped businesses to develop these safe, friendly, non-judgmental environments that Peter's been talking about?
Yes, very powerful words from Peter there. And what we do is we take our leaders through a 3-stage process, really. The first one is really focusing on them and themselves. And what we want them to do is establish a real understanding of themselves in whatever environment they find themselves. Because in order to lead and create that safe and strong, friendly, non-judgmental environments, they need to be knowing what that's like for themselves. What does that feel like? We don't want this to be an artificial exercise. We want them to really focus on who they are. And we use some of the many different examples there, but one example comes through strong, which is that question of how are you? And we get them to really focus on, do they know the answer for themselves? Are they honest enough, authentic enough? You're picking on Peter's great word there, authenticity, about knowing who they are and how they are really feeling. Because that's what we want them to be able to do with the people around them and the people they're working with. Then we take them through a module called Lead with Inclusion. And as you can imagine, that starts getting them to be the awareness that we're not all the same, that we all come to work with different experiences and different environments. But we all know that everyone comes to work, and we start with that premise that everyone comes to work to do a good job. Now, it doesn't always go well for some people, so we want them to be aware when we've heard a lot of that from Peter, that knowing when people are slightly out of sync with their environment. And so we talk about understanding what inclusion means and what it's like to include, and understand that people need different things. So those questions, and previous podcast, Peter had these 3 questions, and his third question was, how can I help you? And what can I do for you? And are you extending that to, how can I help you better involve yourself in this environment? What can we do to help you perform at your best in this environment? So it's really, really powerful. And then the third one is when we look at the teams and how to get the best out of your team as a collective. And so it's not all then on the leader, but the leader needs to set the purpose. And we've heard a great deal from Peter about purpose. So we start with that. What's the purpose of this team? And then what's the principles that are governing the way we're all going to work together to achieve that purpose? And for me, they are the 3 big things that really make a difference when we're creating these environments. Looking at yourself, understanding complete inclusion and inclusivity, and those team bonding parts. And when you put those 3 together, we've been very successful at helping businesses to provide that type of culture. And it's an ever-evolving environment, because that's the wonderful thing about it.
Yes.
Every day is different, every week, month, year is different. So, yeah, that's what we do.
And in these hybrid working days, our physical environment is quite important as well, isn't it? And so one of the things we do is practical assessment tools. So that's identifying people's most productive environment in an actual physical sense. So sometimes an open plan or social environment enables people to work in a more focused way, and sometimes a quiet home environment is best in maintaining energy levels for people. It depends who they are, and it varies enormously from person to person, and it's not always linked to whether they are introvert or extrovert, which is sometimes contrary to popular opinion. I mean, what's your productive environment, and how have you ensured that it happens?
Well, again, we were earlier talking about thanking people, so I'm going to thank you, Nina, for doing an assessment on me that really opened my eyes up to why sometimes working at home on my own in the dark was completely counterintuitive to what I needed. And so I signed up to a local business lounge, and I go there anytime I feel it's a 5-10 minute walk. And so not only does it get me out of my office environment, it gets me into an area where I still continue doing the work, but there's people around me. And I hadn't realised how important that was, just to have some background noise or the ability to maybe just get around and maybe go and introduce myself to other people working. But it's an amazing business lounge because it has all the different types of environment. You could lock yourself in a meeting, you can go in a busy office area, you can have a little pod area. Real great environment for just experiencing what it's like to be in there. And of course, when I'm now doing my selling role and I'm pushing and promoting the business, every opportunity I get to go out and meet people, I'm there jumping in the car and getting back on into face to face with people. So I've really learned a lot from that assessment that you did with me. So thank you very much. It's helped me really answer that question. Yeah. Really well. I couldn't have done easily before.
Yeah, I'm glad you found it useful. Now, Peter, Paris Smith have brought in some very effective hybrid working solutions into your organisation. Can you tell us a little bit more about that, and maybe just some pointers for how other organisations could benefit from your example?
Yeah, thanks, Nina. I'm not sure that we are doing anything that other businesses probably haven't even thought about or aren't doing. We started from the premise of, after the pandemic, of recognising that home working or remote working has a benefit, and that some people are just as productive working remotely from the office as they are from working in the office. But equally, in terms of supervision and development and coaching, having a core hub and having a central office does have a key role to play. And I remember when I was training as a lawyer, actually I learnt an awful lot just by sitting in a partner's room, listening to how that partner spoke to clients, listening how they dictated letters. And if I hadn't sat in that environment, I probably wouldn't have had a clue. So we have created a basis of operation which is appearing to work well in terms of fixing a number of days that people will work in the office. If they want to, they can work all the time in the office, but it's certainly a minimum of 5 days a fortnight, so 3 days one week, 2 days the next. But also encouraging teams to have anchor days. Yes. So anchor days when they are all in the office and they get that opportunity to talk to each other, talk about work issues, talk about social issues, emotional issues, whatever they want to talk about, but just spending that time together, that is really key. In one of the previous podcasts, I talked about the need to have a slightly different approach to leadership and management of teams in a hybrid working environment, because we haven't got those water cooler moments. So people who are working remotely won't necessarily know the full context in which they're being asked to undertake a particular task or project. Yeah. So it is vitally important to not to reach any assumptions that they know as much as you know, but actually almost go back to ground zero and build up from the base. And if they say, actually, yes, I know that, then you can skip a couple of lines. But building that context and continuing to repeat that context, which will continue to flow into that overall sense of purpose that we've touched on in this podcast and in others.
Yes.
Because that will help create that value, that will help to create that feeling of fulfillment and recognition for what is being asked of them. We've been really clear about ensuring that people understand their role and responsibilities, that they understand the outcomes that we're looking for, and that helps then to measure performance and measure behaviours as well. And throughout the operation, we have always had a consistent approach to behaviours and what behaviours we expect of each other, and holding each other to account. And we're not shy in ensuring that people do feel able to say to somebody else at whatever level, come on, you said you were going to do this, where is it? But it's communication, clarity of communication, clarity of expectation is at the heart of ensuring that we can deliver what we're going to deliver, being ever mindful that there may be other stuff that's going on in people's lives, as we've touched on, that is relevant to the well-being of each member of the firm.
Absolutely. Gosh, thank you so much, Peter, for all of that. That's a lot to take in, and I suspect that some people listening might want to listen to that again just to try and absorb some of the wisdom you've given to us there. So thank you for joining with me, Peter and Michael. You've been,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, superb. Thank you. And so we've looked at the causes, the consequences, and how to counter workplace loneliness in these past 5 podcasts. I hope that you, the listener, have gleaned some valuable information that you can put into practice in your workplaces. If you'd like to know anything more about the way we can help, please do have a look at our website, which is safe.org.uk or choicestraining.org.uk. But mostly, I wish you all the best as you seek to make the world and your workplaces a happier, more connected, peaceful and loving place. Thank you again for listening, and do watch out for our next series of podcasts around modern day issues that we love to ignore.